Ka, Arun Swasde, Mingalaba, Xin Chào, and Salamat Pagi, Mabuhay, no, Magandang Umaga. Okay, did I miss any other language? Which I don't know, probably. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests of the Mekong Forum. We will start now with the C1 session. My name is Ratna Devi Nadarajan. I'm a program specialist at the Agricultural Development and Commercialization Department of Mekong Institute. If you are here in this ballroom 3, you are attending the thematic session C1 on inclusive climate and economic resilient agriculture sector in the Greater Mekong subregion. In this session, we will try to provide some guidance on inclusive climate and economic resilience in the agriculture sector of the Greater Mekong subregion, or better known as GMS, especially by empowering and strengthening the participation of small farmers in activities or initiatives related to strengthening of their resilience and access to safety nets, resources, and affordable financing, for example. Our lineup of distinguished speakers will share their perspectives on current situation in the region, what has worked well in addressing these issues, and the success factors to accelerate recovery and resilience strengthening in the agri-food or agriculture sector. Having said that, allow me to briefly introduce the speakers who have kindly accepted our invitations to be with us today, beginning with Dr. Rico Ancog, Dean of the School of Environmental Science and Management at the University of Philippines, Los Baños. He is also the head of the Ecosystem Services and Environmental Policy Research Laboratory of SESAM. As the co-author of the impact of COVID-19 pandemic on the agriculture production in Southeast Asia, reinforcing transformative change in the agriculture food systems, he will set the context of the thematic session today. Following Dr. Rico, we will have Dr. Jun Asido. He is a post-harvest expert and a professor at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. He will share with us insights on an issue which has been plaguing the agriculture sector, even pre-pandemic, and has aggravated by economic, health, and climate disruption, food loss. These disruption and structural limitations in the agriculture sector affects all stakeholders in the supply chain, more so small farmers, who are among the most vulnerable. So we have the pleasure of having Dr. Manolak Bunsihalat, the Director of the Center of Agriculture and Forestry Information and Knowledge at LAVPDR's National Agriculture and Forestry Research Institute, or NAFRI. And he will bring the perspective of small farmers to provide some form of grounding on the suggestions and recommendations going forward at the end of the thematic session. Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin, allow me on behalf of Mekong Institute to thank you for taking interest in this thematic session on agriculture, given its importance to food security and regional economic integration of the Mekong region and its citizens. Upon completion of the speaker's intervention, we will proceed to a panel session moderated by Dr. Rico Ancog. The moderated panel session aims to be inclusive, so we will actively gather feedback from you on key questions as well. So stay tuned. For this, please ensure you have a copy of this flyer and don't let your pen drop. This flyer has been placed, so if you see there is a QR code, right? So that will help you to be actively involved in the panel session later. So for the speakers, before I invite you, you can choose to present from the podium, and there is already a pointer placed there. So you can use that to either move the slide on your own or you can request our assistance from our staff. And before I proceed further, I will also would like to invite to say hello to our online participants. And my colleague, Ms. Han, will be moderating the Zoom participant. And my colleague, Ms. Claudine, will also be assisting with the interactive session of the panel session later on. Allow me to also acknowledge the presence of the Director of the Agricultural Development and Commercialization Department, Ms. Maria Teresa Esmedialdia, and also the Program Manager at TIF, Trade Investment and Facilitation, Mr. Sanga. Thank you. Did I miss anyone else? All right. Okay, so without further delay, may I, on behalf of MIN participants gathered here, invite Dr. Rico C. Ancog for his insights. Dr. Ancog.
A very pleasant morning to each and every one of you. It's a pleasure, of course, to share some of our thoughts related to the impact of COVID-19 on agri-food sector, particularly, well, in our paper, we covered the Southeast Asian country, but we would like to really zoom in on GMS. And that's our scope for today. Okay. All right. All right. First and foremost, of course, when we talk about agriculture, we can never do away with the discussion on food security. And that's going to be our first slide today. So you can never separate food security concerns with agriculture concern. And I think you would agree with me that in this slide alone, what is shown is the ongoing perennial concerns related to food security. And therefore, that also put in proper context the importance of agriculture. And then with the onset of a number of uncertainties, a number of hazards, and particularly in the case of or during the onset of COVID-19, that then added an additional pressure to the agriculture sector in general, and particularly in terms of the agri-food system. I mean, the next slide, as you can see, what is shown here are the specific, the importance of agriculture sector and the growth that it contributes to the region. Now, it is important to point out that in terms of the percent share, in terms of livelihood provision of the agri sector to a number of countries in the GMS remains to be very, very significant. And in the coming years, 5, 10, 20 years down the road, the projections are still in that particular direction, meaning we're still seeing the importance of agriculture. And therefore, any interventions on this sector would remain to be very relevant, and making sure that the agriculture remain to be resilient in different types of hazards or a number of interventions would be crucial for the region as well. Now, for instance, the integration of agriculture initiatives with food security agenda has been done by a number of programs, and that is what is shown in this particular slide. And then therefore, the interventions in agri-sector will then cover a number of different initiatives, not just particularly on the food production per se, but also a number of interventions across the nodes of our supply chain. Our ability, therefore, to then harness a number of interventions also to reduce uncertainties or to understand uncertainties as basis for the identification of, let's say, technological interventions, among others, would also remain very crucial on this. Same is true and particularly relevant for GMS. In as much as we have emphasized, agriculture sector remains to be an important employer, source of livelihood for the region. Now, in terms of the impact of COVID, in our analysis that has been published in the Agriculture Journal in Asia, Asian Journal Agriculture and Development, or AJAD, one particular impact of COVID in the agriculture sector in the GMS is its result in terms of the decrease in the agriculture labor force. Now, this one comes in various forms, particularly in the mobility of the agriculture laborers. And this one may vary in terms of manifestation across the different countries within. In this paper, in the Southeast Asian region, but this one would again vary across countries comprising the GMS. But what is really clear across these countries is the impact of COVID on, or in terms of the decrease in agriculture labor force. Now, the other impact that we have to also further flesh out is a decrease in the agricultural productivity and in terms of GDP. In our initial analysis, or in our earlier analysis, the overall estimated impact was 1.4% drop in the GDP, which is equal to 3.76 billion US dollars. That's for the entire region of the Southeast Asia. And then much of the manifestation of this have been largely felt by most, if not all, of the countries in GMS. Now, this significant decrease in agricultural productivity is also very much related to increase in poverty. Now, this would mean more families, at least in the Southeast Asian region, to be below the poverty line. Now, a picture that can also be gleaned actually in GMS. In our computation, the poverty impact in Southeast Asia has reached on an additional 14.68 million families to live below the poverty line. And the poverty line that we use this as our basis is $1.9 threshold. And again, these have been largely felt also in most of the countries in GMS. Overall, the key lesson that I'd like to really emphasize to each and every one of us here, and has been emphasized also by a number of interventions learning from COVID, is the importance really of achieving food security amidst the growing population in the region, which remains to be a challenge, yes, but this has been made even more elusive by the onset of COVID-19 pandemic. Now, moving forward, this one will then, or further necessitated, the importance of relating agricultural food system interventions with that of our SDGs. And these are several SDGs to which we can then anchor our interventions in the agri-food systems. And when we think about interventions in the agri-food systems in the GMS, this one is not just really about technological interventions per se, but rather this one would incorporate several forms. And let me emphasize this. This one would include policy innovation, institutional innovation, social innovation, as well as with conceptual innovation. The ability, therefore, for individual countries in the GMS and the ability for these countries to talk across, across GMS to talk about these different type of innovations relevant to a particular scale, meaning at the farm level or the country level or across the GMS would be an important interventions, a key strategy for the region as well. Or perhaps further discussion on what really is the policy intervention for the agri-food sector, which has to be then complemented with institutional innovation as well as with the social innovation would be very, very important, on top of furthering our discussion on technological innovation. Well, let me give some example in terms of how we can then picture this out, particularly for our smallholder farms in the GMS with regard to agri-food system. Or there are various dimensions that we have to look into. First, the mindset of the farmers, from what is the status quo in terms of how they operate their farm operations to that of the mindset of what we think as a new farmer. More often than not, we look at primarily agriculture or farming as a production, but there's really the importance of really expanding the perspective of agriculture and farming as a sustainable agribusiness. I understand that most of us here would have that particular perspective, but the general public, particularly the farmers down the line, would need to be injected with this kind of perspective. And then we have to then understand the importance of the farming, particularly as being part of that agroecological systems. So in the academic perspective of this is really more of an ecosystem thinking, circular value chain. And then we can then relate that with what has to be then done at the policy and the social and institutional interventions, particularly from the government and international development organization, with regards to product and services, the kind of partnerships that we have to build, and also that mindset at the policy level, so that we can then provide an enabling environment. And these are in response to a number of needs and a number of opportunities. Now, for instance, in our work at CIRCA or at UPLB, that then led us to the identification of particular programs that are in response to this or are guided by these particular dimensions of agriculture concerns. Oops. Okay. Now, very quickly, what have we noted so far in terms of the interventions? The slide might be very, very small, okay? But the key lesson that we want to emphasize here is our ability to then look into our value chain. Now, if we had an inventory of the interventions with regards to COVID-19 response, we can pinpoint number of interventions from the farmers level. There are several of those already. At the processor level, at the distributors level, at the retailer, and down to the consumers level. Now, the innovations, the transformative innovations that I have earlier presented would then require specific interventions in each of these particular nodes. And my fellow speakers later will then emphasize what are those in each of these nodes, and then what can then be integrated across these different nodes. And this particular system perspective will have to be implemented in each of the farm level of operations in each of the country and across countries comprising GMS. Now we have to then operationalize the kind of interventions that are transformative and relevant to smallholder farms. Now, this is one of the key interventions that we've thought of that would be relevant for GMS. In our work, we call this one as emerging innovation for growth. Now, this emerging innovation for growth will be really having the farmers in mind as the target of our benefits. This one will require innovations, a set of innovations. This one is what we call as our outcome, which has to be then driven with an empowered minds. These empowered minds is our output, which will then be the product of the intervention, which is an open collaboration or an open collaborative culture. And this is the key input of the programs, particularly targeting smallholder farms in GMS. Now, that's just one example of what we did in our work and hopefully can be replicated in different countries in GMS. Now, specifically moving forward, emerging innovation for growth has been our battle cry. Now, noting a number of interventions so that this one will indeed be systems perspective and integrative and holistic, we believe that across GMS, first and foremost, policy would need to have first continuing work on new and relevant varieties and livestock breed. That remains to be a challenge or continuing work. Work also on seed and livestock production distribution of technologies. Agricultural systems technologies remain to be an important ingredient in this, covering water management, pest and disease management, weather and climate. And then also On this would be crucial for GMS. And then the need to encourage more programs and budget allocation from governments as well as private initiatives related to agriculture, such as farm-based small and medium enterprises. I know we're not starting from scratch, but we need to have a program that will significantly scale this out and scale this up. And then there is a need for a massive promotion of sustainable and responsible consumption pattern that provides strong signals for agri-products that support and observe cleaner production, environmental conservation, and social inclusion. The list could be long actually for GMS, but we believe in our study that this one could be among the priorities that the region can pursue, and in each of these countries comprising GMS can pursue. Okay, but that's our, now in a more macro level scale, there's also the growing interest in agriculture, which has to be then sustained with more targeted capacity building activities relevant for government agencies and the groups to specifically promote and generate more agri-entrepreneurs. In GMS, just like the rest of Southeast Asian region, we need to have not just farmers as farmers, the way we usually refer them as such, but farmers as agri-entrepreneurs. And then more studies must be done to ensure the balance between trade priorities and food security goals, particularly under the tenets of ASEAN economic cooperation. Like a more zoomed in perspective on this for GMS would also be relevant. And then analysis toward effective coordination mechanisms among countries to reduce trade and food insecurities, both at the national and regional levels, must be continuously pursued. I really hope you learned a lot from our presentation today, and to set the context of our discussion, which will then be further emphasized in detail by the two other presentations. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Rico. We note that the key points such as decrease in labor force, the importance decreasing in labor force productivity, and also GDP, and increase in poverty in the GMS, and the 5 areas of innovations: policy, social, technology, institutional, conceptual. So let's move on to the one of the key topics, ladies and gentlemen. Having gained insight from Dr. Rico, let's now ponder on the issue of food loss, it being an important issue pre-COVID and also requiring systematic and structural improvements along the agriculture supply chain. So Dr. Jun, the floor is yours.
Okay, it's 11:30 in the morning. Good morning, everyone. Morning. So you can see my presentation. It is about food loss, no? And we'll be talking about the estimated magnitude of food loss in GMS and the factors that contribute to food losses, and then what can be done to address those losses. Oh, next. Okay. So this is an extrapolated results of food loss. There was no dedicated study to measure food loss in GMS. Okay. So we can see there that food losses are expressed in terms of percent of GDP. It is expected that Thailand, the more advanced country in GMS, among the 5 countries in GMS, excluding China, has the lowest food loss. But since it has a higher GDP, you can see that the loss in Thailand, which is only 0.19% of GDP, is equivalent to more than $2 billion. Okay. Okay, thank you. And the highest among the 5 GMS countries, the highest food loss is incurred in Cambodia. It's about 1.73%. But since Cambodia's GDP is low, so the value is only about over $1 billion, but that's big money. So overall, food loss in these 5 countries is estimated at more than $15 billion, which is higher than the national budget of Cambodia and Laos. Okay, sorry. Yes. Okay, so I forgot to mention the footnotes. CCC crisis. What's CCC? Global crisis. The first one is COVID-19 pandemic. The second one, climate change. The third one, conflict, especially the armed conflict in the Russian war, Russian-Ukraine war. So because of those crises, food losses were worsened, became more serious because of massive, serious disruptions of supply chains, because of many breakdowns in the food systems. Okay. Food loss also worsens poverty. Many people became poor. If they are poor, they become poorer. And food insecure. Many people became food insecure. If they were food insecure before the pandemic, during the pandemic, they were very food insecure. They were very hungry or maybe malnourished. Okay. And because of the contributions of food losses to greenhouse gas emissions, measured in terms of carbon dioxide amount, climate change or global warming inducing climate change is also increased. Take note, food loss is context specific. You cannot generalize, no? And if you generalize, you might end up with wrong solutions to the problem. Okay, I am emphasizing the losses of nutritious food because this is also the emphasis of the state of food insecurity and nutrition in the world in this published this year 2022 by global bodies, FAO, IFAD, and other UN agencies. So you can see there that the countries in GMS lost more than 10% of the total fruit and vegetable production. And that could be used, the amount of fruits and vegetables be wasted can be used to increase consumption, especially in countries except Laos and Vietnam. Lao people and Vietnamese people are eating a lot of vegetables. The vegetable data is given here. I'm sorry. So the World Health Organization recommends a minimum vegetable consumption of 240 grams per person per day. All countries in ASEAN, except Laos and Vietnam, did not meet the minimum intake of vegetables. So very serious. In terms of food loss in relation to the recommended food intake, you can see there that the perishable foods. Oh, what's happening? Okay, not clear, no? So I will point. This is fruits and vegetables. It has, they have the highest loss of about 44% among food crops. But in terms of recommended consumption volume, the fruits and vegetables, this is the recommended, but we are only eating less than 50% of the recommended amount. And as a result, global hunger index, which is the average of four measures of four parameters, including malnutrition or undernourishment, wasting or stunting, and mortality, death, is still high in not clear. Is still high in Myanmar, Cambodia, and Laos. Among the 5 countries, Vietnam has the lowest hunger index. Okay. So in terms of contribution of food waste to greenhouse gas emissions measured in terms of CO2, which is the global warming potential contributing to climate change, food loss is the 3rd largest contributor of greenhouse gas emissions, estimated at about 10% of the total greenhouse gas emissions in the world. The first 2 are US and China. They are the highest contributor of greenhouse gas emissions to the atmosphere. So food loss reduction is a global priority. Okay, so in particular, SDG 12.3 aimed to decrease food loss and waste by 50% by 2030. And based on the information earlier presented, the reduction of food loss will not only meet that SDG, but can also contribute to SDG 1, SDG 2. 1 is no poverty. SDG 2 is no hunger. And other SDGs, like including climate action, SDG 13, and gender equality, because women dominate post-harvest industries. Okay, so what is the expected impact of food loss reduction? We can reduce poverty and food insecurity. We can promote equality among men and women, and this is particularly the inequality among men and women is particularly present in GMS countries. Okay, and then we can reduce greenhouse gas emission and therefore contribute to reduction or to minimize global warming. So what needs to happen? What can be done? Okay, so we can follow the recommendations of global and regional bodies. This is the state of food insecurity and nutrition in the world 2022. This is the incentivizing transformation in agriculture and food by the World Economic Forum. This is the ASEAN blueprint on how to recover from COVID, and this is the sub-regional program of ADB, just presented by Dr. Rico. So, in particular, we can reform policies, okay, Existing policies put more emphasis on non-nutritious crop that like rice, which is also emitting a lot of greenhouse gas emissions, no? Greenhouse gases. Okay, so even in the Philippines, the government allotted about 40% of the budget to rice. So we have to repurpose policies, and we can assist national governments to do this. So what is sustainable food system and resilient food system? They are defined there. So in sustainable food systems, there are three measures of sustainability: profit, economic; second is social, benefits to society; and environmental benefits or environmental sustainability. For resilient food system, it is the ability to withstand and recover from crisis. And then it is also put forward that we continue to follow the value chain approach, the food chain approach. And lately, the nexus approach is also recommended, so that linkages between sectors or domains can be maximized. If there is synergy, maximize that synergy. If there are trade-offs, we can manage trade-offs. Okay. And we can also we should focus on smallholders, because the vast majority in our agriculture and food sector is dominated by or populated by smallholders. And of course, we have to address also the needs of disadvantaged sectors, especially the women and indigenous people, the youth, who are shying away, who are escaping agriculture. We can make agriculture attractive to the youth by introducing digital technologies, no? So that the youth can be attracted to agriculture and food sector. There are many interventions in the post-harvest sector. This can be non-technological and technological interventions. So we have the luxury to look at them, screen, filter what will give us the highest likelihood of success, the highest of likelihood that those interventions can be practiced, no, in value chains. And we have to work on value chains, not only dominated by smallholders, but also that will cross borders, okay? Such as from Cambodia to Thailand, or to Vietnam, or to Laos, or vice versa. And all of these activities can strengthen the strategic initiatives of Mekong Institute, initiated by the Agriculture Development and Commercialization Department. The 5 strategic initiatives are sustainable food systems, value chain development, post-harvest management, climate smart agriculture, and food safety and market access. These are also priorities in global and regional bodies like FAO, the ASEAN, and the GMS program of ADB. Thank you for your kind attention. Okay. Cannot see when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. Tough times will not last long. Yeah.
Amanda. Thank you. Tough times don't last, tough people do. Right. Thank you, Dr. June. I think going forward, we acknowledge the 3 Cs, which is climate, conflict, and COVID. right? Which actually translate to the health and economic and climate disruptions that we are facing now, aggravated by COVID-19. And also his interventions also underscores the importance of the 5 innovations which Dr. Rico highlighted just now, and also taking note of the value chain approach and the nexus approach. Thank you for those thoughts. We had an overview from the food loss and the impact of COVID-19. Now let us hear from Dr. Manuela Bunsialat on the impact of these disruptions on the main stakeholder in the agriculture supply chain. It's farmers, particularly small farmers. Dr. Manuela, we invite you to share your thoughts.
Thank you very much. First of all, good morning, everyone. I'm very glad and honored to be here for today. It's really a good chance for me to share some information about the Lao small farmers that we are facing during the COVID period, and also the other impact of the global economic crisis. I would like to go down to the small case of that the small farmer, especially in Laos, because of as the organizer mentioned about the farmer, they are really, really soft and really sensitive with the impact of the external impact. So that's why today I would like to talk about and share that information about the small farmer that they responded to the economic impact, and also the climate change, as well as the COVID pandemic. Some case that I bring here is talk about the small farmer, especially that upland. They're quite limited on the capacity and also the knowledge. Okay, let's see how many what that I would like to talk today. So due to the limitation of the time, and also I have some preparation on this information. So I would like to talk about some Lao agriculture sector in terms of the export and commercialization, and also the poverty and small farmer impact. So what the challenges during this critical condition, and also about the COVID impact and how they adapt, and also the adjusted their technique and technology with their agriculture activities. And the next will come up with the climate change adaptation that we have the problem, and also every year we are facing with the flood and drought. This very difficulty of our small farmer, and also some case of our small farmer have to deal with about the safety standard for market and also export. And then I will come up with a conclusion and suggestion on this condition impact. So can you see? Okay, that's better. I worry about the character and the font. So the Lao people, as you know, there is a landlocked country in the Southeast Asia, and also, but we have a lot of the biodiversity, and especially the biodiversity food that we consume, and also make it a diet food, and also nearly 7 million people now, and also majority of our population is involved with the agriculture activities, and we contribute that allow 16% of the GDP for our agriculture contribution, and also we increase that the contribution, the GDP that allow 3% in every year. And agriculture export mainly that we now nearly 50%, and also the we have export in 2017 around the 72. So that means we increase the export of the, especially the cassava and also the coffee. This main production that we export to neighbor country, especially the China. And also the climate change condition in Laos, we have is especially the rainfall and also longer drying season. And also we have the flood and drought every year. This year we have to develop the national strategy on the climate change mitigation. So that we in the priority of the government. And also the property and small farmer impact, that mean we are also recently in Northern, we try to improve their livelihood and also the agriculture production. And then we connect with the China market that we would like to export, and then including about the poverty reduction, because mainly the population in Northern that are the poor families. So that in our target and in the agenda that we try to reduce the poverty, and also the agriculture is main activity for their livelihood. And then we now we set up the agriculture sector is commercialized to play the key role of the rural production, the poverty reduction. And also Lao agriculture sector is demonstrated and introduced with the smallholder farmer in the upland. We have many projects now implementing in the value chain development. So especially now we try to improve the quality and also the market standard on the tea and coffee. So we will as we suggest, and then we would like to set up that the organic standard for tea and coffee for export. So next about the COVID-19 in Laos, especially not only the health that we get impact, but also we facing about the economic impact and also food and nutrition security. So we found that some small farmers in lockdown areas, they cannot bring their products to the market. So during the COVID period, they cannot sell off the products, but sometimes they have the capacity limitation on the storage and post-harvest technology. So that make them lost the profits, and also this is they can not achieve or they cannot deliver their agricultural products to the market. So that mean, but that mean we try to make the special condition for the agricultural products that they can have the area for agriculture market, so that they can bring some products to the market, but cannot export to other countries. So that means it's quite difficult for smallholder, a small farmer, that they can, make a adaptation on the COVID impact. And also many of them, they have no income enough during the season after finish the harvest season. So that means the livelihood or their life, their food or income is quite limited and also have the problem. But the price, that's really interesting because we cannot import from other countries. But the price of the agriculture product is really high. And also they can sell out in the high value of the agriculture products. And also is I found that during the COVID season, COVID period, pandemic, and agriculture sector is not get a lot impact from that, and it's easy to recover because that the small farmer they make the small scale of the production, so that the production and their activity is not in this limit area. So when we open the border and we didn't now we open the area and also come back to recovery strategy too. Agriculture sector is more faster than other sector that we can come up when we have the market, and also we have the transportation that allow them to move and deliver the agriculture products. So that means that COVID impact is not make the significant condition for them. But now we facing on the gasoline increase, the price increase. That make a lot impact of the agriculture production, especially the agriculture input. So now we think this make the main significant, and also a lot of farmers now they can survive with the what they call the like fertilizer label and also the machinery. They cannot use that because that the high cost for production. So in invention that we think now we have to think about that on-site market is better than the marketing strategy. So we are now this not only that gasoline and price, it also the inflation make it the input of the agriculture production that increase, like now the currency, the exchange rate is double. So that means when we import from other country like fertilizer and also gasoline, this make that agriculture cost is double prices from last year. No? And also supply chain, we have problem with the logistic system. The cost of the logistic and also for the transportation condition now is quite difficult for agriculture products, and in the supply chain we have some problem with like from that side, the farmer production plan and logistic, like median man, they double the cost of the agriculture product. And then when the customer or consumer that when they buy, they feel that it's quite expensive. So it's because of the logistic cost is increased. So this, as I mentioned, and also in the report that we found, so it's not big change with the agricultural activity during during the COVID pandemic, so that they still have the activity and can continue with the small farmer production, so that they can sell and then they can produce, but not the what they call that in the export market. And also here is some input that not any big deal with the input, because they can produce and continue their agricultural activity in their area, in their province. But the problem is that the inflation and also the gasoline price that increased. But COVID is not the main. So also this one, the food security, when they have the COVID impact in the community, mostly that they use the food from the market, and also the collect that NTFP products in the forest, so that the smallholder, small farmer, they can have some small impact during the period. Also the climate change, with this also have some impact and affect our farmer and smallholder. So especially during the rainy season, and also you can see the fraud in 2019 is a very big damage with the irrigation system, and also drought season. We have a lot of that impact on the climate change, and also the especially food security in early 2020. But we have some adaptation that introduce and also promote to the farmer, the small farmer. They can now use the improved varieties. For example, the rice that we have now, this one is use the less of the water, and this one we compare with floating species and normal species, so that the rice variety that can survive more longer than the normal species. This species that we improve, that the farmer, they can use that the rice variety in their area if they think they have more often that the floating. And also other technology like green greenhouse, for example. And for the climate change, so some challenges and problem with the small farmer. So they have a lot of things and limitation on the information and knowledge on the climate change, and also the technology, and also the technique for the community, and also the climate change cost sector. The climate change is the cost costing issue, no? The communication and the coordination with among of the sector, we have to improve, and also have the problem, and also financial resource and mechanism to implement to all sector to support the climate change mitigation, and also the staff capacity building, especially in the local area, in the provincial and district. They have some limitation on the knowledge and also the management on the climate change. And we also think about the early warning system, or some system that we can measure and report and promote of the climate change and management of the best practice, to share the experience or practice among the community, for example, that they can improve their knowledge. So also this kind of the impact during the COVID, and also small farmer, that they are not able to have a good quality. That when we talking about the standard, the market standard, especially the organic standard or other standard like SPS, that small farmer, they don't understand and have no knowledge and technique to improve their production. And Also, the challenge is the high cost, you know, for there, because the farmers, small farmer, they think about the cost rather than the quality. And also, we have the limitation on the training and technical for the services, the technical extension service for our small farmer. Now we can export, like I mentioned about the agriculture export production, that we have to improve our quality standard, that we to meet the international market condition, especially in the ASEAN. This is the main issue for our small farmer for export. So that's why, when in conclusion and suggestion, that I realized that we should increase the small farmer understanding on the COVID, and especially in the COVID pandemic, and also the economic impact, you know, and also the climate change. So when they lack of that information, lack of the knowledge, so how can we communicate and transfer the technology to the community? That is the main strategy that we have to think about. And also local governments, that food and cash, this also the productivity and climate change, you know, this we have to think. And food processing, we lack of the technology, and as I mentioned about the standard, post-harvest technology is really important for them, but they don't know then how to improve their quality. Sometimes we can pass the quality of the production, but the processing and also the packaging, this really main impact for the market, to export market. And also capacity and policy program, this is really important in the each level of the government. Now we have to improve. And also the sharing experience among the community, and also in the region, and also the nation, that we have to exchange and learn the practice with the best practice. This is really important for small farmer during the impact, the critical impact, like COVID or climate change or economic impact. So that's I would like to share with you for today. I don't know that maybe some maybe value information for you, but maybe we can share and discuss later on with the discussion. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Manolak. It is quite clear and reinforcing the notion that farmers are facing challenges at several fronts. So what can we take away from this session to contribute to initiatives at national and regional level, ladies and gentlemen, to strengthen resilience in the agriculture sector? Let's discuss a bit more, shall we? Let me invite the speakers to the stage, Dr. Rico, Dr. June, Dr. Manolak, for the panel session, which is kindly moderated by Dr. Rico. So please prepare your questions. While you think about the questions, I think we let our gentlemen take their seats. Are we playing musical chair?
Thank you. Thank you.
So will we have another set of mic for the two gentlemen? Yeah, okay. So while we are getting the mic, Dr. Rico, shall I hand over to you, including the Mentimeter? All right. So over to you, Dr. Rico.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Ratana. So overall, that particular panel discussion focused on inclusive climate and economic resilient agricultural sector in GMS. So there were three papers that were presented. One really was on the impact of COVID, and then also that paper highlighted the importance of interventions in response to COVID. But one thing that we have to take note, we understand that COVID is just one response. We really have to highlight a systemic response also to the agri sector in general, and then that therefore necessitated several interventions. The second paper was really on a very important area of concern, which is on food loss. And it has been argued in the paper, very good paper you presented, important statistics, and then also the interventions, what can really be done. And also what I really like also is the percentage, percentage out of the GDP that is attributed to food loss. Therefore, with or without COVID, that alone is a major area of intervention. If done correctly, I believe that would be crucial also for the agriculture sector in GMS. Now, when we talk about COVID, we talk about agricultural sector, we have to understand that in GMS, smallholder farmers are still a key player, and we can never do away with that. And that has been painted clearly by the paper, providing a case in Laos. So those are the three papers that we prepared in our panel. And we would like to welcome each and every one of you to then raise questions or clarifications so that the two speakers can answer those questions. Because I am the moderator now, so. But that's, so any question perhaps from our participants?
Maybe we can start with the Mentimeter and then
Okay.
wait for them.
Okay, Ratana, if you can help me with the Mentimeter. Okay, so we understand that there are also participants in the online, via online. So we have prepared questions so that this we can feel, we can have a good feel of, the pulse of our participants. So there's one first question, and let me read the first question. In your experience or opinion, which of these have the greatest impact on the agri-food sector in your country? So there are choices in there. Maybe you can join the Mentimeter.
Dr. Rico, if you allow me,
Sure.
you have the code here, right? You can use your mobile phone, scan the code and participate in the poll.
Yeah.
Now, once you scan the code, you have to click the heart and then you can answer the questions. Is everyone okay? Use your mobile phone, scan the code. And then once you start responding, you will see the answer appearing on the screen, the poll.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Thank you, Dr. Rico.
thank you, Ms. Ratana. So is everybody in the Mentimeter already?
Okay. Good.
Is it working? Yeah. Okay. So now that you are joining the Mentimeter, so let's hear from each and every one of you. So let me repeat the question again. The first question. Is it okay, sir?
So it's appearing. If you can see, there are 4 people who have answered. So competition, which one?
Okay, so okay, there you go. We now are receiving responses from you.
Stock market.
Oh yeah, a real-time response. So there are options in there: natural disaster, price of fuel and agri-chemical inputs. COVID-19 has been mentioned also. weather patterns, pest diseases, and other factors that you might think of. Okay. Very active participants. Thank you. I think top in the list now so far, we have let me just Ratana, if I may, we have the same order, right? We're following the same order.
Yeah, same order.
Okay, same order. So the first one is natural disaster, but I think topping the list is price of fuel and agri-chemical inputs. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then it is followed by the fourth option, unpredictable weather patterns. Well, this panel is about impact of COVID-19, but we've really identified the two major options. Two major factors. We have price of fuel and agri-chemical inputs and unpredictable weather patterns. Perhaps that's a good lesson to take note of. And if you'll allow me, let's hear some thoughts from our speakers, more or less about the results of your responses. Okay, let's start with Dr. June Acedo. Sir.
Ano ito?
In the survey,
Okay.
our participants have identified the factors helping the list of price of fuel.
Yes. So based on my presentation, these two were implied, no? So the second is on the prices that shoot up, which could be attributed partly to the to the third C. There were three C, which is a conflict and armed conflict, which is a global crisis. And the fourth one is on unpredictable weather, climate change, the second C. So I think that will support that.
So quite consistent with your presentation, actually, the pulse, the responses that you gave. Sir?
Yes, I think also I agree with that participant about the input. So this is a factor that make the cost of the small farmer, as I mentioned in my presentation, is really important. Any factor that relate to the agriculture inputs that will make the cost high and agriculture products. Also, this really sensitive. I think I agree with the participant that this is the second one, is it?
The second one is weather patterns, unpredictable weather patterns. So
Okay.
related to climate change, perhaps, yeah. So, in these responses alone, the governments in the GMS can really learn a lot from this response. While the panel is really about impact of COVID-19, but with or without COVID-19 pandemic, I think concerns related to inputs to agri-production system is an area of concern. So we need a lot of actions or interventions on this. And predictable weather patterns and price of fuel and agri-chemical inputs. Okay, thank you very much. Perhaps we can invite the audience if you have one or any question to our two gentlemen here. Yes, sir. Thank you.
So thank you very much for the interesting presentation. I have a question here. So I'm Jesper Kneineber from Kongen University International College. I'm wondering here, because the fuel and the chemical inputs are put together, correct? I was wondering if you could say something about which of these would be the major contributor to the increase in price, and which of the two would be the easiest to overcome, in your opinion? So if you could maybe say something about fuel and chemical inputs separately.
Well, very quickly, of course, we would understand the relationship between the price of the fertilizers in relation to the price of the fuel. And more or less that's the reason perhaps why we've put this together. But any specific response to that, further elaboration, that is the request of the gentleman over there. Sir?
So I think for fertilizer or other inputs, no, it come with the logistic system. It's like gasoline prices increase. This is the main majority of the value chain of the agriculture inputs. Okay. So that is the thing, the gasoline or logistic or transportation. Because the cost of the fertilizer or something that is not
Related
increased, but the logistic or transportation, that really
Okay.
major impact.
So if I may add, unless you want to say, but I think actually he can say lots of things about this, but we understand that among farmers, particularly smallholder farmers, fertilizer inputs is a major factor actually for production. And the price, therefore, of fertilizer has an impact on the productivity levels of farm production. And this is affected, of course, by the price of the fuel. And we understand what we're going through in a number of countries with concerns related to Ukraine. This has affected the price of the fuel, which then has an effect on the price of fertilizers, and has in turn affected the access to fertilizer inputs. But I think for the smallholder farmers, I believe, sir, fertilizer inputs is really an important factor. And in GMS, I think countries are performing a number of interventions, to improve access for smallholder farmers on fertilizers. Any other questions?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kit Tapalabut from the Master of Urban and Regional Planning's Faculty of Architecture, Konkan Universities. Dr. Rico, you mentioned at the last sentence about proposed the ideas of agriculture to change to entrepreneurs. This is need to change not only the mindsets of the farmers, is also needs the supportive of the skill and ecosystem for the farmer as well. In your idea, you think how the GMS countries can address to support this idea in terms of policy and practice? Thank you.
Oh, the speakers. But thank you for that. Well,
sorry.
Well, that particular thought actually emanated from the realization that we have to change the perspective of the farmers, which are really been perennially for the longest time have been very much focused on the production per se. But we understand agricultural production is just one aspect of agricultural activity. So the ability of the farmers to connect to the market, the dynamics governing the markets, their appreciation on this would be crucial for the farmers. So a recognition of that need will be an important step. And also for the government sector, particularly for the extension workers, the need to enhance the awareness of the farmers on this is important. The other aspect is really the change in terms of our programs. Therefore, it is not just about interventions that are related to the agri-production per se, fertilizers, so on and so forth, but also market-related interventions will be crucial. So in a more practical aspect, we need to have a farmer who is not just really conversant about agricultural production per se, how to grow crops, how to grow the livestock, for instance, but also could really very well understand the workings of the market. To me, that is a crucial step among farmers, particularly in GMS, just like in Southeast Asian region as well. Yeah, lots to be done actually on that, but my colleagues here can add more. Sir June? No?
the recommendation of many sectors. Yeah. That we have to transform our farmers from just farming to businessmen. You know? In the Philippines, we are doing this by if farmers are not organized, we supported their organization into groups, associations, and cooperatives. And interventions can be directed to the cooperative, to the group. So that cooperative can engage with market to dictate production. Okay, so the cooperative could be controlling the quality assurance activities for the harvest in order to meet the quality and quantity requirements of the markets, like that.
So that is really more about the scale, and then also making sure that they are organized, in a group or in a particular scale that they can have more influence actually.
And also in my last slide, was the last, we have to repurpose policies. Okay, our policies are biased to rice, which is not nutritious, but at the same time, they are high greenhouse gas emitting. So we have to provide support to nutritious foods, increase availability of nutritious food like fruits and vegetables, and make healthy diets more cheap, more affordable. Okay, so that's it. That's a great challenge. But I saw a statistic that GMS is decreasing the rice consumption, while fruit and vegetable consumption is rising. Maybe these GMS countries are saving rice for export to the Philippines. Okay, and that's true. We are the #1 world importer. The Philippines.
I have some comment or for this question. Maybe I don't know is it hit your question or not. When we set up the invention policy in the country or GMS, that we have to think about that how the policy or the invention that met or respond that the issue of the farmer production, especially when we have the crisis impact or something like that. That when we set up the policy, that we have to think and concern about the policy is hit that the problem of that farmer or not. This is important that they can support the farmer production.
So in there, it would really require interventions, not just in terms of quantitative targets. Actually, in a way, there are a number of market-related factors that the farmers can actually maximize if they are business savvy as well. Okay. Are there? Okay. How about we'll proceed to the next Mentimeter question? There is another question. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Vâng. I'm from Faculty of Food Science of Industrial University of Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. May I have a question to Dr. Sun? You mentioned in, sorry, sir. You mentioned in food loss. Is it means food waste, and is it affected by COVID-19, or is it affect all way of the process when we processing food? Thank you.
Thank you. Also, you can add more question for Sir Jun later. But Sir Jun.
Yeah, the food loss is it's the general, but the overall include both food loss and food waste. Okay, so you know already what is food loss and food waste. Food loss is the decrease in quality and quantity of the produce, no? Especially before retail. While food waste are edible produce, can be eaten, but discarded by retailers and consumers. So the food loss statistics, both food loss and food waste. And it was taken, it was estimated in 2021. So it was during the COVID pandemic.
So perhaps further disaggregation would be necessary to really understand the COVID-related, aspect of food waste and food loss. Yeah. Okay. But I think that is what is necessary, sir. Like more dedicated studies, really, to have more reliable data on this at the country level, across GMS, or even down to localities or government. Yeah. Yeah, and specific value chain. Yeah. Okay, so there's a yes, sir. Okay. Okay, all right. Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. So I wonder, like you see at the previous chart, so our participant agree to like agriculture input increase difficult to productivity. So why when we sell to the product, like to the cheaper, not balance? Because the customer want to buy the cheaper and good quality. So like in Cambodia, so all adult farmer go to outside, like migrate to like Thailand, to other country to find a job. They don't want to work the agriculture because it is cheaper, cannot get benefit. How GMS independent to make balance? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so so if I may, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're talking about two aspects here in terms of the food prices. Like across GMS countries, food prices may vary, but at the same time, since we're talking about GMS, agricultural labor can go across these different countries. So therefore, there's a need to balance between these two. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that the question?
Yeah.
Okay. Any thoughts about it, sir?
You're a good strategy moderator. So for this question, I think into expect the products and the labor cost. Yeah. So if we want to try to keep the balance of these in the region, I think this is very difficult to control because the factor and input that they have in the countries. So in my opinion, I think the management system for the agriculture production in the country, we have to set up and then think how to can balance the the cost of the logistic, for example, the cost of the input, the cost of the market is for the agriculture products, but the labor quite difficult because it's quite sensitive for that. In my country has the same problem. When they finish the agriculture season, the young people or something, they can find out another job, maybe at in abroad countries, but the it's really with this factor, agriculture products and labor, where is high, they will go there. So that means we have to think and sit about together about that policy and also the strategy and how can we make a common standard or common strategy that we can control for that. But this is quite a little bit hard to answer.
Any thoughts? No thoughts, Sir Jun? But I think this is where the regional cooperation or framework for cooperation would be very crucial because we're talking about trade in here. and then cross-border labor sharing, and also for the food prices. But I think to answer the question, this is just my thought. We're always working towards efficiency. So if we'll be more efficient, or a country is more efficient in food production, for instance, in a particular commodity, I think that's a good policy direction to support. Same is true with labor production, for instance. But what is crucial is if this is allowed between and among countries within a region, I believe at the region level, at such scale, GMS will really benefit. But there has to be, as has been mentioned earlier, there has to be a clear framework at the GMS or at the ASEAN level to guide this, to make sure that each country comprising GMS or ASEAN would benefit in that policy direction. Okay, Sir Jun? All right, there's a question online, and let me raise this question.
Yeah.
How biotechnology, in agriculture helps buffer the internal and external forces affecting SME farmers in the post-COVID conundrum. May I repeat? How biotechnology in agriculture helps buffer the internal and external forces affecting SME farmers in the post-COVID conundrum, or in post-COVID. How do we see biotechnology? What is the importance of biotechnology to better respond, particularly to respond or to recover after COVID, specifically for SMEs? Sir, the mic is there. Thank you.
Very good question.
Yeah, very good question.
Modern, but for the basic, for our small farmers, for the SMEs. So you know what is biotechnology? We can use that to rapidly develop new varieties that can resist stresses caused by climate change. No? We have, say, prolonged droughts, high temperatures, and there will be certain cases there will be too much rain, that there will be transient flooding, or your farm may be waterlogged. So these are some of the stresses, and those conditions can also promote the activities of abiotic stresses like your pest and diseases. So therefore, in contrast to the conventional breeding, biotechnology is a more targeted and faster method to develop new plants that could be used for these stresses, against these stresses brought by climate change.
Yeah, thank you. There was a drum because I think that supports your answer, the importance really of biotechnology. Yeah. But there was supposed to be one presentation really on the productivity from CropLife Asia, and for sure biotechnology will be further emphasized now to make sure that we can achieve quantitative targets now in agricultural productivity. How about in Laos, sir? Particularly for smallholder farmers?
Yes, the biotechnology is, I think, for the large scale production is quite get the benefit from that technology. But the small farmer and also it's quite that advanced and also that high cost of the technology. So that thing maybe, but the COVID and also you need to avoid that the impact that maybe help that farmer in some case. Yeah, but not absolutely for smallholder activity.
Yeah. So, we're talking about biotechnology. Important aspect there is, of course, the seed varieties at the breed that we actually use. So even if there's several inputs that we use, but the kind of varieties that we used are not responsive or adapted to the changing condition, unfortunately, it may be a waste. So these are losses. So I think there's a potential really for biotechnology to be further maximized. I hope that answers the question, or
Yes, and also we can use biotechnology such as by gene editing to reduce post-harvest losses. Okay, so we can reduce food losses through biotechnology.
or improve productive efficiencies in relation to biotechnology under stressed condition. So yes, sir.
Good morning, everybody, and good. Thank you, your present speakers. My name is Pambonara. I come from Cambodia. I work as a Battambang Province Department of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fishery. So I want now, because my farmer in my country, we have a problem with harvest and food safety, because now we produce over supply demand. It's meant that now in my country we have a contract farming law, but our farmer just not yet contract farming. So I want to get your recommendation from you to inform or to extension to my farmers. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. I think
Farming.
did we hear it correctly? Contract farming. So in Cambodia, there's already a discussion about expanding contract farming, and then you are asking the two gentlemen about their thoughts and ideas about contract farming in
Yes.
Cambodia.
Yes.
Is that a correct question? Okay,
Yeah, okay.
Sir Jun, Dr. Panumlak.
Yeah, thank you for the question. It's really interesting. The contract farming also in Laos we have the experience, and then also we facing some problem and conflict about the business about the investor and farmer. Because when we have the contract farming with the farmer, the problem, the first is that the requirement, that the standard that the business or the investment, they would like to ask the farmer to follow up. In another way, that the farmer, that's quite difficult to follow without the knowledge, without the technology. So this is a problem when we have the contract farming in the country. We have to clear on the requirement on the contract. This is we made because sometimes, for example, when we produce some for example, like cassava or something, the contract they requires that high quality, high yield, high condition. Then when the farmer cannot follow up with that, we break down the contract. Then they have the conflict with the farmer and the businessman. This is the important issue.
Sir Jun. It's in Cambodia.
What's the problem?
But I think, there's a policy direction, perhaps like the need to expand more contract farming. Yeah.
Because in Cambodia, I understand contract farming has been existent there for a long time, especially because I have a producing area next to Battambang, Pairin. Yeah. I think it should be a two-way relationship between the farmer and the contractor. And anyway, both will be benefited. The farmer will have a shared market, so and the contractor will also have a shared produce for their processing operation. So if there are problems in those in the contract, it has to be addressed. It cannot be addressed by the two parties. There should be maybe a third party initiated by the government to moderate or to intervene, just in case, so that everybody will be happy. Yeah.
So I think there are areas in the world where contract farming has been found to be effective. I think that business model has been proven effective actually, in different areas. We just have to identify the success factors and then contextualize that to Cambodia. But as has been mentioned by Dr. June, it is also important to then ensure safety nets, and the role of the government, Cambodian government, will be crucial to have that beneficial contracts between and among parties. Yeah. Okay, so it's already time. Okay, but very, very quickly, because you answered the question. If you'll allow me, Ratana, just to quickly run through the responses.
Second question.
Yeah, just very, very quickly, are your responses. There were two remaining questions, and thank you for answering. So for instance, in the second question, in your experience or opinion, which of these is the biggest we already answered this.
Challenge, obstacle faced by the farmer.
Okay, faced by the farmer. And then topping the list is access to financial support for value addition. But more or less, we also have a similar number of responses. The fourth one there is access to quality agricultural inputs, technical support, and then land tenure and management. I think that's a good survey. Thank you for the responses. And then the third one, we have the last question in our Mentimeter. Which policy or strategy in your country do you think has been the most helpful to small farmers to cope with climate, health, and economic disruptions? But I think this is an open-ended question. So probably you've shared a number of points and we'll process it later. Okay. All right. So, well, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for actively participating this important panel. Here, we really put the emphasis on a resilient, productive, and also inclusive agri-food system, which is very relevant for GMS countries.
Thank you. I am Lida from Cambodia. I want to ask you, it's the same question of the millimeter. And in your opinion, because like climate change is happening now, like in Khon Kaen it's flooding, and Cambodia, some province also flooding. I want to ask you your idea, which action that we should take now on agriculture to reduce the impact of the unpredictable climate. Thank you.
Sir?
We have to view the different alternatives that are climate smart. So if it is in agriculture, climate smart agriculture. So during this time when it is raining heavily and more flooding, so agricultural crop production should be designed to resist that, or to be more resistant to that condition. There are climate smart techniques depending on the crop in order to minimize the adverse or bad effects of say excessive water, excessive rain, or flooding. So many, for example, in vegetables, you can use say grafting as starting materials. You can use raised beds or protected structures. So protected structures are climate smart technology.
Sir, very quickly.
Very briefly, I think for this question, we should provide the farmer some accurate information and knowledge as well as the technical support to farmer to reduce the damage or mitigate the climate change impact. Because of that, if they know or they rely on the information, they can adjust and then maybe adapt the technology or technique with the climate condition. That's really important for that. Maybe you can use the smart agriculture system or something like that.
Okay, I'll just add very quickly because we're running out of time. But I think you can never do wrong with interventions that will ensure productivity. So mentioned there are several ways how to go about it, but I think any interventions that will still ensure productivity will be a good initiative. But with regards to climate change, I think more on projections, climate projections, etc., and then translate that to information that can be acted upon, to improve decision making at the farm level. I think that's one adaptation that will be among the priorities, among a long list of interventions that can be done. Yeah. So maybe we can talk more about it later, but thank you very much for your active participation. This has been a very, thank you to our two speakers. But thank you very much for your active participation. We'll now turn you over to Ratana.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Rico, Dr. June, Dr. Manolak, for that exciting and interactive session. And we would like to also thank you, not thank you enough, for your for your active participation. We will do a summary, and Dr. Rico will, going forward, will summarize our discussion as much as we can for the plenary at 3:30. I think after the evening coffee break, we will have a plenary in this room, and you can also listen to the summary of all the other sessions which you could not participate. Now we will, again, thank you for our gentlemen, the esteemed panelists, and we will now go break for lunch. And the other panel sessions, simultaneous parallel sessions, will start at 2. All right. In here at the back, you have the panel session name, and also at the end of each of the panel session name, there is the room where it will take place behind this card. So you can join whichever panel session that you will intend to participate. Now, just a small request, a very important request though. Let's gather here for a group photo. I do not know, I will assign my director of creativity to organize you for the group photo. Just give us 2 to 3 minutes. The hotel staff is at the door. That's Dr. June. Photo. You took so much effort with that. Next time, you better take a photo.
Or we will just stand.
Yes, come up.
Join the group.
Yes, come up. You can stand up.
Wait, no. ADC staff, join us. No. No, join us. Ratna. Dinio? Yeah, like that. Okay. Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manora.
Everyone, please join. Where are the others? What's wait? Yeah, it's cold. My hand is cold. Look, look. Especially yeah. Ratna, come here. No, okay. I will stay. Show. Yeah, sit. God. Come. Mother, where is Slack? Yeah, we should. Oh, I don't. Very funny. Is good. But it's funny. It's a very. What's the question? And what is the problem in Cambodia? He's not listening. This guy. The problem in Cambodia. This guy. It was like a comedy. Like a comedy. Yeah. Yeah, because we're the only guy.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Model. Okay. Wow, very balanced. Two ladies. Our baby. Yeah. Okay, good. No mask, please. No mask. Oh. Wow.
Finally.
Very balanced.
video โอเควิดีโอ
อ่ะวิดีโอใกล้กับวิดีโอ
ได้ขนาดที่เหมือนเราได้
ก็เราละตีเสก Why when I speak it's like there's a microphone right microphone where three what like this no like that but yeah put from this time oh my gosh even the what thank you okay yeah sorry Ay, one more oh yeah, special for it. Another one. At the phone of clothes. What? What? So. I got it. Huh? What? What? Yes, thank you everyone. Thank you. See you. Come in. They cannot read my. They cannot read my.
That's all the day.
Anh kia ơi,
Yeah.
không quen. Sao mình nói là không phải là không quen introduce so we out now. We chit chat in the room. I feel a lot of chat. Okay. Oh, by the way, we give tentative responses very open on the first. Oh, yes. Okay. I will give you a PDF of this one. Who will prepare the PowerPoint for Dr. Rico? Okay. Right now, we're going to prepare the PowerPoint.
อันนี้สีสามเนาะอันนี้สีใช่ไหมครับ
ใช่ตีสามอีกแล้วพี่เลยพี่ก็เรียกมาเจอตีสามไม่ถึง are very dark. No, don't air dropping. It's not easy. Sometimes, but you don't have to. Yes, I'm very sure. His hat. ABC already.